Morning, everybody. I'd like to call the planning and stakeholders relations committee. First item is roll call. Ally Doyle, if you want. Anna Gore. Stephanie.
Here.
The first item is on the agenda. One thing I'll mention about the agenda, I'm excited that.
Excuse me, I should finish the roll and ask if there are any non-committee board members present as well.
I'm a short timer, I always screw it up. Are there any other board members that would like to identify themselves? Sorry about that. Dick Visitino.
Jennifer Liptak.
Okay, thanks for correcting me. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the May 19th, May 8th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Thank you for that. The first item on the agenda is a quarterly update on the university line. Amy, got a lot of exciting stuff for us.
Not too much exciting today. A bit of an update. Good morning, members and board members. Good morning, everyone else. My name is Amy Silverman. I am the Chief Development Officer here at PRT and wanted to provide a quarterly update on our PRTX University Line Bus Rapid Transit project, which is currently under construction. So first, just a high-level overview and visual of what the corridor is, where the corridor will go. So as a reminder, many of you know, but in case you are new to the project, we do have this corridor currently under construction, which connects Oakland, Uptown, and Downtown. And in this core area, we will have Fifth and Fourth Avenues with mostly bus-only lanes added over the next couple of years, as well as transit stations at the dots along the map at regular intervals that will have ticket vending machines, real-time signage, shelters, benches, and security cameras. This will also have much improved pedestrian access, especially in the Uptown area where sidewalks will be completely rebuilt, as well as signal improvements throughout the corridor. And we will have 5 bus routes using this full alignment, and that includes the 61A, B, and C, the 71B, and the P3. This is a visual of what the typical station will look like. Stations will be different lengths depending on where they are throughout that corridor. Some areas we expect lower passenger volumes, so they may be a little smaller than this, and some areas may be as large as this one here, which is a 60-foot long shelter to make sure we have ample room for waiting passengers. So you can see some of the example amenities that I mentioned on the previous slide, including seating, maps, advertising, ticket vending, security, trash receptacles, etc. So this project, as a recap, began construction of a phase 1. We phased this project into 2 different phases. So phase 1 began in September of 2023. So it is currently under construction here in downtown. Downtown is the phase 1. And so I'm sure many of you, if you have been out and about in downtown, certainly all those of us in this room today, have experienced some of that construction and what's going on out there. We are at, I believe, 7 locations in downtown right now where we have active construction happening in different phases. Most of the station elements for the downtown component of the project should be in place by the end of this calendar year. And then it is very likely that we will need to wait until early spring of next calendar year to do some of the final elements to conclude the phase 1 construction. And that will likely include the bus lanes being painted red or having the red treatment added and sort of formally having that component of the project complete. Phase 2 includes the Uptown and Oakland neighborhoods. That is set to go out for advertising here for construction in the summer, and then bringing back to the board that construction contract this fall, and then in earnest getting going on that construction next spring. And that is set to be a 24-month construction cycle. So again, the same elements, adding signal upgrades, adding station elements, and adding those red bus only lanes through the Uptown and Oakland neighborhoods. So likely concluding at some point in 2027. And at that point, this component of the PRTX University line will be fully constructed and open. This is a map indicating the 7 zones that we currently are under construction with in downtown. So the map has some red arrows on it. This indicates bus-only lanes and the direction of travel of those bus-only lanes, and then yellow arrows that indicates the direction of travel where we don't have a bus-only lane, but the buses will be moving. Those are just areas where buses may be moving from one side of the street to the other, and having a bus-only lane only gums things up a little bit further. So broadly, the project will come in bound on 5th Avenue, all the way to Liberty Avenue, turn right on Liberty, right again on 6th Ave, and then head outbound by turning left on Forbes Ave. In the downtown area, we will have 5 stations built out. Those are shown in green squares on the map here. So we will have a station at 5th and Ross, at 5th near Smithfield, actually that's near William Penn, at 5th and Liberty, at 6th and Liberty or 6th and Wood, and then finally at 6th in front of Mellon Green, the Steel Plaza T station. As a reminder, the total cost for this project is $291 million. Most of that is in federal sources. You see the largest slice of the pie on screen here is a Small Starts grant, which is an FTA program that has provided $150 million for this project. And there are a few other federal sources in there as well, including a congestion mitigation air quality grant and American Rescue Plan dollars. And then the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, along with us here at PRT, have contributed money from our capital budgets to support this project. Just a note on a couple adjacent project components. This project has changed through the years, so we don't want to forget some of these adjacent pieces as well. At one point in the project, we deferred what we were at the time calling the branches of this project, which was the station elements continuing into Squirrel Hill and Greenfield, and then also station elements continuing into East Liberty and Highland Park. Those are still prioritized for us. We are still trying to advance those. We have been able to fund the Squirrel Hill branch. We received a grant earlier this year to fund those components. We're excited about that, and we are still looking for a funding source, a grant to support Highland Park branch. The electrification of the bus fleet also moved to a parallel project, and that is actively underway. We have received several of our battery electric and clean diesel 60-foot Vivendi buses. You've probably seen them out and about. There's an image of one on the screen. They're a bright bold blue with the sort of X arrow symbols on them, denoting the PRTX brand. And those will continue arriving here over the next quarter or so until we receive all of them. And then the Smart Signals project, which includes transit priority signals throughout the corridor, is also an adjacent project that is being run by PennDOT and the city of Pittsburgh. And so that continues to advance as well and will come in after we complete our signal work for them to put those smart signal components into the upgraded signals that we have supplied as part of this project. Just a reminder on project communications, we have several different ways that stakeholders and members of the public can stay apprised on what we have going on. So we have a general project website, which is our website, rideprt.org/BRT. We also have a news hub that you can link to from that main project page. And then we are also hosting monthly stakeholder meetings in downtown right now for the construction. So active construction updates, having those meetings both in person and online. And we will likely continue as we move toward phase 2 with our Uptown and our Oakland stakeholder partners. So just wanted to provide that brief overview and update of the project. We'll continue to give sort of a brief update every 3 months or so as we continue through these construction phases. But just wanted to provide any opportunity for questions.
One of the things that came up at the very accessible transportation was the bus redesign, and just so that people is aware that this is completely separate from that. That there's that's not going to have any impact on the PRT involved.
Correct. So at a high level, we have this project in construction, and it has selected 5 bus routes that will run on the corridor for this project that I mentioned on the prior slide. We also have an active planning project underway called Bus Line Redesign, which is looking at all of the bus routes in full network. It is intentionally not looking at those 5 bus routes. Those 5 bus routes will be part of this construction project. However, it is looking at other bus routes that may tie into this corridor. So it is possible that that project will prioritize a change to a bus route that somehow touches upon this corridor. Especially in Oakland, we have 19 bus routes in Oakland. So there's no way you can keep these 5 bus routes and the other 14 bus routes separate. All of those buses will intermingle in the Oakland neighborhood. And then of course, downtown is the same. We have 84 bus routes in downtown. So lots of intermingling. We are trying to keep the bus lanes devoted and dedicated to the PRT sort of rapid style transit where possible, but that's not possible.
Just one thing, the section of the BRT, the uptown section, you mentioned anything about that because they're putting new sidewalks. I saw it as a, you address that at all?
Sure. So right now, construction that folks might be seeing in the uptown neighborhood is mostly utility work that is coming in ahead of our project. So the utilities have been compelled by the city of Pittsburgh if they have any repairs or state of good repair work that they need to do because they don't want those utilities coming back in and ripping up the road right after we replace all of that infrastructure for the project. So lots of the utilities are in under the road subsurface right now and sort of doing patchwork as they complete those pieces of work, knowing that we're coming in and doing the sort of complete building face to building face work when we get in there to do our construction. So when we go in, we will, in most parts of uptown, be replacing all of the sidewalks in addition to the street, which is not what's happening in downtown or Oakland. Uptown has a lot more infrastructure improvements needed. There will be new curb cuts, ADA compliant curb cuts added throughout the corridor. New PED actuated signals and countdown timers, et cetera, for people who are crossing the street. So lots of pedestrian improvement to come from our construction project. But any construction folks are seeing today are those utility companies.
Yeah, update on the parking issue, access to the curb. Any update on that?
Sure. So we do have all of the information from working with the city of Pittsburgh on where they are proposing to add new both ADA parking as well as 10 to 15 minute, which it is, I think 15-minute pickup drop-off zones immediately off of 5th and 4th Avenues in Uptown. John's question is in reference to the fact that the bus lanes will be on the right side of the street in Uptown. And so in most cases, if someone were loading or unloading a person with a disability, they may need to use the right side of the street. So the city has worked with us to make sure we are adding all of those spaces throughout the area. I believe there's only one spot where the bus lane itself actually does move over for a loading and ADA parking space. So.
And the reason I bring that up is I wanted the board to be aware of that because there's a question of disability around that. I know early on, access was permitted for but we've got a little bit broader than that. So that was something that was done early on and agreed to by the county. Anyways, are there any questions? I'm not sure if any committee members have gone. Stephanie, do you have any questions of Amy?
No questions at this time. Thanks, John. Thank you, Amy.
Any other board members have any questions of Amy? Well, you're pretty thorough. No questions. All right, good. Thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda is one of my exciting projects, access, and Darcy's going to present with that, Karen. So, Darcy.
Thanks, Sean. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, city members, other board members, members of staff, and members of the public. I am Darcy Cleaver, Director of Transit Amenities. Some of my main functions here at PRT is overseeing our transit stop, our park and ride, shelter, other amenity programs, including wayfinding, and one of my favorite subjects, which is managing the Access Paratransit contract. So Access is sponsored by PRT, Pittsburgh Regional Transit. It is part of our family of services. It operates as a decentralized brokerage. The Access program contracts, we actually contract out the management of the program through Transdev, And then Transdev contracts with 3 providers who actually provide the service. That would be SNS, NAM, and PRN. There are 300 vehicles that operate this service. That includes vans with lifts as well as sedans. There are 145 sponsoring agencies in the program, which certainly requires a high level of coordination and prioritization of the sponsors of the program. Our program exceeds the ADA minimums, and we operate on a 93% on-time performance. So our program, like I said, we operate it as a brokerage. So we have all these different funding programs that operate, that funnel down through the broker and then goes down to the service providers that I mentioned previously. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. So the broker, Transdev, what do? They do things like customer service. They coordinate the demand of the program. They monitor the service. They do the accounting and the reporting. They do the fare collection. Our access program operates on a electronic fare collection, which we call ePurse, which automatically deducts the fare from the individual's account every time that they take a ride. They also do the service development. They do the planning of the program, the eligibility, which is very important that I'm going to talk about in a minute as well, and oversee the substance abuse program. The providers that I mentioned earlier that actually provide the rides, they purchase all the vehicles. They do the maintenance on the vehicles. They oversee the risk maintenance, the insurance they provide, which is very high. They do the training of the staff. They do the reporting to the broker. They take the reservations. Each individual who is calling in for a ride will call their service provider to schedule their ride a day in advance. The service providers do the scheduling for the service, and they also do the dispatching. PRT's ADA program, we are very proud to say, exceeds the ADA minimums for the service area by providing service throughout 3/4 of a mile of a bus route. Actually, I'm sorry, let me take that back a minute. The ADA says that we are required to provide service within 3/4 of a mile of any bus route. We exceed the ADA minimums by providing service throughout Allegheny County and into other counties by 1.5 miles into them. Our hours of service, we exceed the ADA minimums. Fares have been maintained at $3.15 for over a decade, providing a fare that is at a low cost for our riders. We exceed the ADA minimum by providing door-to-door service as opposed to curb-to-curb, and we even provide hand-to-hand service for those who need that extra level of assistance. There are no capacity constraints for the ADA riders on that program. We provide 100% in-person eligibility with functional assessments. And we also do conditional eligibility, which is enforced and allows individuals that have conditional eligibility to use the access paratransit along with the fixed route system. They work hand in hand together. So how do we do that? Wrong slide. On this slide here, we're going to go over the program distribution that makes up the riders of the access program. So as you can see here, the ADA program is made up of about 7% of the overall riders of the system. Seniors make up 14%. 17% is made up by the home and community-based waivers program. 7% is our PWD program. County VHS makes up 19%. The majority is made up of MATP riders, medical assistance transportation, 6% with escorts, and the remaining 5% is made up of all other programs such as nursing homes, personal care homes, home and community-based waivers, and the others that you see on the slide here. On this slide, I'd just like to demonstrate how the system works for an individual. So this, what I'm showing on the slide here is an individual, a lady who is 62 years old. She lives in Squirrel Hill. She has a physical disability that she uses a manual wheelchair. She is ADA eligible with conditional eligibility. When she goes to the grocery store, that trip is actually tied back to the funding source on the Area Agency on Aging, the OPT program. When she calls to book a trip to go to her doctor, that is tied back to the medical systems transportation program. When she goes down to Hines Hall in downtown, like I said, she lives in Squirrel Hill. She uses a manual wheelchair. She has a really good range of motion in her arms. She lives close to a bus stop. She's going to use our 61C and use Fifth route from her house and take it downtown to a bus stop that is very close to Hines Hall. But when she goes to her daughter's house that lives in Blackridge, her daughter's house is further away from a bus stop, so it is not accessible for her. It's too far away. It's about a mile away. So on that trip, she would take the access service. But when she goes to her job in White Oak, that's when she takes the coordination for a feeder stop. She uses the 61C from her home. Remember, I said she lives close by a bus stop. She uses the 61C. She takes it to our McKeesport Transportation Center, where from that location, she takes access that would take her to her job. This is our beautiful bus. This is our mobility center. What we're seeing here is a bus that was built by our rank and file employees at the Manchester shop. It is exactly like the inside of one of our real buses. We use this at our mobility center located at 701 Smithfield Street around the corner. Any person applying for the access program would come in for an in-person assessment that is done with a physical therapist to assess their ability to use the bus. This is when it is determined if they have conditional or unconditional eligibility. Part of that assessment is done in the bus at the access center, and part of it is done actually out on the street in the real environment. What you see here on the right is not only is this bus used for individuals that are coming in to have their assessment, but we use it for training purposes. This year was a group of 10 individuals that had a variety of different disabilities that were interested in learning more about how to use public transportation. So they come in for the day, and we took them on a bus ride, and they spent the day, well, not the whole entire day, but a couple hours over at the Access Mobility Center getting comfortable with the inside of the bus. We also use the bus for when someone may get a new mobility device and they want to take that opportunity to actually get on the bus, take their time to maneuver it around on the inside and not have to do that out in the public on a crowded bus where people are staring at them, or perhaps, holding a delay on the bus. So we make this open for anyone that wants to take the time to come over and get more comfortable using the inside of the bus and becoming familiar with it. At this time, we do have some individuals from our access program here with us today, and I would like to introduce them. Heather Vitek is our Director of Quality and Performance. Heather is in the back. And also Emily Gouache, who is our Director of Compliance. Thank you, Emily. And also Karen Hesh, who is our Executive Director of the Access Program. And at this point, I'm going to turn this presentation over to her to tell you a little bit more about access stats today and also the ridership.
Thank you very much. How many years, Karen?
45. We're calling that out.
Yes, I am the elderly Karen Hesh, the public face of access. And thank you very much for inviting me here today. It's been a 45-year blessing, actually. I still enjoy it. But access has changed a lot and over the years, but particularly like all other kinds of transportation since COVID. So we're slowly clawing our way back from the decline in ridership from 2020. We're right now at about 79% of pre-pandemic ridership. And year to date, right now, we're at about a 5% increase over last year. We would be a little higher if there were enough drivers in the system, but like all modes of transportation, our providers are struggling to recruit and retain qualified individuals. So that continues to be our biggest challenge. Interestingly, the slowest category of ridership to bounce back post-pandemic has been the home and community-based waiver programs for people with intellectual disabilities. And those are the day programs that people attend either in a workshop setting or a therapeutic treatment setting. Those programs are suffering from the same ills as access is in not being able to recruit and retain enough qualified employees. So they're not able to open their doors to the full membership that they had prior to COVID. So people who were able prior to COVID to be able to participate 5 days a week now are largely only allowed to go 2 or 3 days a week because of staffing concerns. So let me just tell you where we are and what the rest of this year looks like. Our on-time performance right now is standing at about 93%. Darcy mentioned there are no trip denials for ADA eligible riders, and that is because that under the ADA, we are required to provide those trips as a civil rights law. But other riders in the system don't have an absolute right to a ride. So the ADA trips take first priority. Medical assistance transportation takes second priority because that's embedded in the state legislation that requires the medical assistance transportation program. But beyond that, then trips are provided on a space available basis. So we have a certain number of drivers on a certain number of routes with a certain number of seats in the vehicle and certain number of rules about on-time performance. And as people call, those seats are filled up. We have made a commitment to our riders that if we're going to tell you we're going to give you a ride, we're going to do the best job we can to make it reliable. So we deliberately do not overbook or overpromise. If we tell you that we're going to get you, we intend to get you on time. If there isn't room for the ride you need in one of the vehicles on the road, you're offered the opportunity to go on a callback list. That list then is reviewed at about 1:30 every day by the schedulers. And very often the schedulers can find a place for your trip. Regardless of whether a spot is found or not, you get a call back telling you whether or not you have a ride for tomorrow. We're able to provide about 70% of the trips on the callback list. The total trip denials as an absolute number is under 2%. That equates to about 75 rides a day. We're working as hard as we can to get that down to 0 because no one in transportation likes to tell someone that they can't have a ride. I mentioned the challenges with driver recruitment and retention. The providers have done what they needed to do in raising hourly wages for access drivers. They're generally starting at between $18 and $20 an hour, and they do not have to have a CDL. So we believe that the pay rate is competitive, but there are lots of jobs out there now that pay $18 to $20 an hour. So people have plenty of choices. And being an access driver requires a special kind of person. It's really less about driving and more about customer service and assistance. As the ridership is returning, we're seeing some changing travel patterns that make it harder to provide service. The trips are longer. Some of them, like the medical assistance transportation trips, are almost 50% longer than they were before because post-COVID, people are no longer receiving services in their own community. So people are having to travel further to get the same service as they did prior. Vehicle availability is slowly returning to something like normal. There were 2 years during COVID where our providers could not get any new vehicles at all. But the price has gone berserk. Before COVID, the body on chassis vans that the access providers use cost about $65,000 to $69,000. They're basically Ford trucks. We had a provider that bought 6 new vans this year that were just delivered for $175,000 each. Yeah, wow, that's right. We are very aware of how expensive access is as a service. It's a relatively small part of PRT's overall budget, but we want to make sure that PRT can afford to be as generous with access as it has been in the past. So we're working hard at improving productivity and reducing the cost per trip. And one of the really important ways we do that is by pulling these other sources of funding into the program. When Darcy showed you that big chart with all those different funding sources, those are all other agencies other than PRT, excuse me, that are paying for rides. So the more of that other funding we can pull into the program, the less falls to PRT's bottom line. The other thing we're trying to do is to improve the productivity of the system. So we're working hard to negotiate with riders of taking trips at times when we have empty seats so that we don't have vehicles out there without riders in them. And I would like to see the on-time performance back up closer to 95 to 96%. We're getting there, but it's a process for sure. Some of the positive opportunities we've had this year is through our longtime partnership with the Area Agency on Aging. They've agreed to increase their shopping, their grocery shopping offering, so that instead of having to go in a group, people can go grocery shopping on access and pay a lower fare that's subsidized by the Area Agency on Aging. They can go once a week. It meets the AAA's goal of making sure that seniors have access to healthy food. Right now, those grocery shopping trips are about 20% of our senior ridership, and it's the fastest growing part of the senior ridership and access. To me, that is an indication that getting out and at least going to the grocery store is a level of outside mobility and independence that older people are comfortable with. So we want to be able to support and maintain that. They're also generally easier trips to provide because there's so much flexibility about the time of day that they can go. So it's not like a medical appointment where you have to be there at 8. So it's easier for us to fill the seats in the vehicle with the grocery shopping trips. The drivers handle the grocery bags, so it, excuse me, it's a real convenient program for older adults. Thanks to PennDOT, we're still part of a pilot project so that we can offer the lottery funded service for seniors on a same day basis. So advanced reservations aren't required. We're able to provide about 50% of the same day requests that come into our system. And we made a decision this year to concentrate on our core mission, which is our door-to-door paratransit. We have been the provider for Heritage Community Transportation for about 25 years. And we notified them in January of this year that we were exiting that contract by our choice so that we could devote all of the resources available to our system to our core mission of serving our access customers. Happy to answer any questions. Do you have any?
Are there any questions? Scott, do you have any questions?
I have no question.
Any other board members have any questions of Karen or Darcy? The only thing I'll thank you is thank you for the 45 years of service by all means. And I think it's important that the board have a better understanding of our access system because it's an important part of what we do. And you know, because one of the things I do, I use both systems. I use buses and rail. I also use our paratransit system. Some of the programs that you're talking about, the fallback on the waiting list, I've used that. That's worked pretty well. And I think the interesting thing about what driver you pay, what they were paid when I first started using Access, and what they're paid now is significant. But it is still highly competitive because their wages are much higher. And you really have to be an Access driver. You have to be a different kind of person. You know, it's just a kind of the nature of the beast. So, but thank you guys for all that you do. And if there's no further questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda is the most important thing in the family. So if I have a motion to adjourn. Okay, meeting's adjourned. I think what the finance committee's next.
Jennifer, this is Sandy Garfinkel. I think you're chairing the finance committee today in Ann's absence, correct?
Hello. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just trying to switch over my my phone. Okay, so let me just does everyone have their agenda before them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order. The first order of business will be a roll call. I believe that I recognize that I'm on the line and I'll be acting as chair today. Member Totten, are you present?
Present.
Thank you. I ask if any other members of the board would identify themselves as being present for the record.
This is Brevnik Pisatano. I'm here.
Stephanie Turner here.
Contact.
This is Tia McClinney.
Lori Miskorsky.
Thank you very much. The first order of business will be the approval of the minutes from the May 16th committee meeting. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
I'll make the second. Thank you. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I believe we have a few items on the agenda for consideration today. Let me pull up the agenda so we can move forward with the resolutions as listed. So.
Good morning, Madam Committee Chairwoman, committee members, and other board members. The first resolution for consideration for Finance Committee this morning would authorize PRT to enter into amended collective bargaining agreements with the Port Authority Transit Police Association, covering our rank and file transit police officers and our police supervisors, which include our sergeants, detective sergeants, and lieutenants. The current agreement between the parties for rank and file officers expires on July 31st of this year, and the current agreement for supervisors expires July 31st of next year. However, that agreement includes a reopener clause that allows us to further renegotiate the supervisor's agreement concurrently with the rank and file agreement, essentially so we can, the goal here being to get them lined up on the same the same terms moving forward, so they can, as we continue to move forward in the future, can negotiate at the same time, because typically the provisions carry over pretty consistently between the rank and file and the supervisor agreements, wage and benefit wise. Over the past several months, PRT and PEP representatives have been engaged in good faith bargaining to try and reach new agreements. Recently, and subject to ratification by both parties, we did reach proposed terms for an amended agreement for both rank and file officers and an amended agreement for supervisors. A copy of those proposed agreements are included as Exhibits A and Exhibit B, respectively, in your resolution packet, your agenda packet this morning. And briefly for rank and file officers includes a 3-year term that would begin in August of this year and run through July 31st of 2027. Wage adjustments, again, continue to be focused on, the national and regional challenges of continuing to try and attract and retain officers. Our compensation group did a market study. So the wages that are proposed in here are based off the results of that study. And if approved, it would increase first-year officer wages from $57,484 to $68,004 in their first year. Officers are on a 3-step progression. So in the third year, that would increase from $76,645 to $90,672 in that third year of the progression. Years 2 and 3 of wage adjustments would be between 3 and 5%. Depending on wage increases of comparative police departments that are identified in the agreement under the wage provision. In addition to the wages, other provisions within the both proposed agreements are really focused again on officer retention. We've done a bit better over the last year with some prior salary increases with hiring, but we're still struggling with vacancies and, with officers, coming in, getting a few years of experience and moving on to other departments that pay better or have better benefits. So some of these other provisions that you'll see in further detail in the agreement exhibits include a lateral higher wage provision, increase in field officer training pay for officers who are designated to train new officers coming into the department, increase in uniform allowance, recognition primarily of inflationary increases for uniforms, an adjustment to the vacation day allotment, officer eligibility to participate in some benefit programs that are currently available to our non-represented employees, including our flexible healthcare spending account program, paid parental leave program, and the caregiver assistance program, and enhancements to our defined contribution plan retirement program that really recognize and provide for additional company contributions to officer defined contribution retirement plans based on years of service with the department. So the more years of service, the more eligibility for increased company contributions to your eligible retirement contributions. Again, the supervisor's agreement largely mirrors the rank and file agreement, except wages would be adjusted in a manner to restore and address some compression issues we've had over the last few years. But essentially, we would get back to a 12.8% difference between rank and file officers and sergeant wages, and a 10% difference between sergeants and lieutenants. Both of these agreements have recently been ratified by PAPA, by our police union. So subject to any member questions, I would respectfully request that the Finance Committee recommend this resolution authorizing ratification of both agreements on behalf of PRT to the full board for approval. I'm happy to answer any questions that members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cetra, for the explanation. I also want to thank you for sending out those documents in advance for the board members to review. I do want to ask this will be a fiscal question related to the overall package. It is a package that increases wages and benefits pretty substantially, understanding the nature of it, finding it difficult to get officers. I just want to hear from finance that we do have the funds to be able to support these increases.
Yes, we have budgeted for the upcoming year for these increases.
And projected out, just because projected out, I mean, they have a 3-year step up to full rate. So it's just, I mean, it's pretty substantial. I understand the situation Port Authority and many other agencies are in. I just wanted to just make certain. I believe, how many officers do we have on the force? Is it 40?
We have 49 total, which includes our chief and deputy chief and our supervisors as well.
Is there any plan for expanded, or is that the number that is budgeted?
That's the budgeted number. We have no additional positions budgeted this coming fiscal year. And I believe that, I don't know if Mike was on for the entire statement there, but our CFO, Dominic Brown, did note we knew we had these negotiations coming up with the coming fiscal year. So we did budget for anticipated wage increases to address that.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's the questions I have for now. Any questions from committee members? Hearing none. Do we have any board member questions?
None.
Yes? Anyone? No? Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the adoption of the bargaining unit agreements as described by Mr. Cetra.
Motion. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to the second
Thank you.
item. I believe, you're right, Ms. Silverman will be presenting a resolution, an authorization. Sorry, I'm looking at it and it's worded a little strange. So please, Amy, please, if you could continue and bring forth the authorization request.
Absolutely. Thank you, Board Committee Chair and committee members of the board and stakeholders. So good morning again, Amy Silverman, Chief Development Officer. I have a resolution which is timely given our planning presentation this morning at Planning Committee to authorize the approval of the fiscal year 2025 administrative budget for Agreement R21-10, which provides coordination for individuals with disabilities and older adults in Allegheny County, aka our Access Program, and our contract with TransDev, who operates our Access Program. So this resolution would approve the third year of a 5-year contract with TransDev Services Incorporated. This contract is negotiated, reviewed, and adjusted through an amendment each year of that 5-year contract. This year's budget recommends a not to exceed amount of $2,546,000, which represents an increase in 1.7% in costs from the previous negotiations from last year. And these reflect changes due to ongoing inflation in our current environment. And this resolution would bring the total not to exceed amount of the initial 3 years of the 5-year contract to $7,496,400. So subject to any questions that committee members may have, I would respectfully request that the Finance Committee recommend this resolution to the full board.
Thank you very much for that presentation. At this time, I'll entertain any questions from board members. Hearing none, any questions from anyone else on the board? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve this authorization request as presented by Ms. Silverman.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Thank you very much for those. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. Our last matter of business today is the review of the financial statements. Dominica Brown, hello. Ms. Brown, would you please provide your presentation?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, committee members, board members. We'll start out with the passenger revenue trends. The last few months have been pretty flat in revenue. However, fiscal year to date, compared to last year, we are about $4 million higher in passenger revenue. For May 2024 revenues, we have about $500,000 less revenues than budgeted, and that's primarily due to lower fares and excess revenue. For expenses in May 2024, we are about $300,000 below budgeted amounts, and that is due to vacancies. Our subsidies for May are $13.2 million higher than budgeted, and that is primarily due to higher invoicing for preventive maintenance and state funding, as well as, capitalizations. We have been invoicing PRISA more than we initially budgeted. For the year-to-date revenues, we are about $900,000 below budgeted amounts. Again, that is due to fares and excess revenue being lower than budgeted. Expenses, we are favorable about $33.3 million. Again, that is due to vacancies with wages and benefits, making up $14.1 million of that variant. Also, purchase services and all other expenses are lower than budgeted. for subsidies as of year-to-date, May 2024. Again, capitalizations are about $55.2 million higher than budgeted, and that is due to increased preventative maintenance versus invoicing. We started out the month of May with $385.5 million in operating reserves. During the month, there were cash inflows of $58.8 million. That included $11.9 million in FERSA funding, 27.5 from the Commonwealth, and 7 million from Allegheny County. There were cash outflows of $48.8 million for wages, salaries, benefits, materials, and supplies. And PRT ended the month of May with $395.5 million in operating reserves. In regards to federal stimulus invoicing, we have $27.1 million remaining in FERSA funding. And that is the conclusion of a financial report. Are there any questions?
So our overall financial health is good.
Right now, because of, I would say yes. However, we've had discussions about the coming fiscal and the concerns for funding there. However, we are performing under as far as expenses go. While we're not quite hitting the budgeted amounts for revenues, we are higher revenues than we were last year.
You can say close.
I'm sorry.
You can say close. It doesn't make me excited when you go there.
So our projected funding cliff is 2028, 2029, if the additional funding from the state is sent. Those are our preliminary, given our current funding status.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from either committee or board members? Hearing none, I thank you, Ms. Brown, for your presentation. That will conclude the Finance Committee meeting. I believe that's all the items on our agenda. And so next will be Performance and Oversight Committee. And I believe Representative Piscatano is handling that committee meeting today.
Yes, good morning. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Performance Oversight Committee. We are down a member right now, so I will be chairing the meeting today along with the interim chair, Liptak. So good morning and welcome. First order of business is roll call. So I'd like to start by asking for roll call for the Performance Oversight Committee, which is myself and Lori Miskorsky. Are you here, Lori?
Yes, I'm present.
Good morning. And then other board members, please identify yourself.
Stephanie Terman.
Jen Liptak.
Thank you. The first order of business is approval of the minutes. The minutes from the May meeting of this committee have been circulated. Unless anyone has questions or corrections, I'll ask for a motion to approve these minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The approval of the minutes motion carries. We'll now move on to proposed resolutions. The first resolution for approval is for the approval of bid awards. Ms. Brown, could you please report on the resolution?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chair and honorable members of the committee and the board. I'm Keisha Brown, the Director of Procurement. We have 4 items this morning. The first item is for biofuel, diesel fuel, and it is solicitation B24-0213AR. It was publicly advertised in e-business, and the documents were distributed to 169 suppliers. The opportunity was responded to by 6 suppliers, and 4 bids were offered to PRT to furnish and deliver ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel to PRT's operating location for use by its bus fleet over a 1-year period with 1 renewal option available. Procurement evaluated the bids, and our recommendation is that an award be given to the lowest responsible bidder, Petroleum Traders Corporation, in the estimated amount of $16,957,440
$440. This pricing represents a 2% increase over the previous contract prices for these products 2 years ago. The staff have determined the pricing to be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funds budgeted. The second item that we have on the agenda is herbicide spraying for vegetation control. This was solicitation B24-01-09 ARR. It was publicly advertised in e-business, and the documents were distributed to 413 suppliers. 2 suppliers accepted the invitation, and PRT received 2 bids for the spraying of PRT's properties and right-of-way for vegetation control over a 3-year period with no renewal options available. This procurement's recommendation that the contract be awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Allen Chase Enterprises, in the estimated amount of $193,204.46. This pricing represents a 16% increase. Contract pricing for the services 3 years ago. Again, staff have determined that the pricing to be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funds budget. The third item that we have is for janitorial paper supplies. The solicitation number is B24-04-40A. It was also publicly advertised in e-business and distributed as a line item award for a 3-year contract. There were 525 suppliers notified of the bid opportunity, and 10 suppliers accepted the invitation, and PRT received 8 bids for the furnish and delivery of janitorial paper supplies at PRT's various locations over a 3-year period with no renewal options available. Please note that there were 4 bidders that were found non-responsive in accordance with section 3.0, which encapsulates the core list of janitorial supplies. The subsection describes the product specification requirement. Therefore, the proposed line items for these 4 bidders were deemed to be non-responsive to the solicitation requirements and are ineligible for award. Procurement recommends that this multi-award contract be awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidders as follows. WB Mason, I want to note that there were 21 line items and they were put in groupings of 7. So the first group, line item 1 through 3, we recommend to WB Mason. Also group 3, line items 7 through 9. Group 6, line items 16 through 18. In the estimated total of $682,445.40. The second awardee we're recommending is Pitt Specialty. This is for group 2, line items 4 through 6, group 4, line items 10 through 12, and group 7, line items 19 through 21. This is in the estimated amount of $480,112.50. The third awardee, Paper Products, Inc. Procurement recommend awards group 5, line items 13 through 15, in an estimated total of $2,700. The overall contract total estimated cost is awarded is $1,165,257.90. In the grouping, I'd like to articulate the decreases that we experienced in this particular solicitation based on the past contract. For grouping 1, there was a 6.52% decrease. Group 2, there was a 19.17% decrease. Group 3, there was a 0.87% decrease. Group 4, there was a 19.17% decrease. Group 5 was a decrease of 57.13%. Group 6 was a decrease of 4.39%. And lastly, Group 7, there was a decrease for 42.28%. And staff have determined the pricing to be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funds budgeted. The last item on our agenda for procurement is the snow removal services for park and ride lots. This is solicitation B24-04-38A. It was publicly advertised in e-business and it was distributed to 197 suppliers. One supplier accepted the invitation and PRT received one bid. In accordance with requirements of receiving one bid, PRT has done a survey as to why other bidders did not participate in the offer. One of the bidders stated that they were transitioning in terms of ownership. However, they do intend to participate in the future for services of this nature with PRT. And the other supplier articulated that they could not provide competitive pricing at the time. So with that note, procurement recommends that the contract be awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, which is Pittsburgh Lawn Care, in the estimated amount of $280,000. This pricing represents a 33% increase over the previous contract prices for these items 2 years ago. Staff has determined the pricing to be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funds budgeted. Mr. Chair, pending any further questions, procurement respectfully request these items be moved for consideration to the full board.
Thank you. Does any board member have questions for Ms. Brown? Anyone on the phone?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I do have a question as it relates to local companies, or I see Pittsburgh Lawn Care is a local, I would take it as a local company. The others, are they local and or participating? Are you guys reviewing their small business DBE participation qualifications as well?
There were no requirements for DBE at this time on these particular procurements. And also, we did not have preference in terms of local. So though anyone that was registered, which is a pre-requirement in e-business. Yes. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just agreeing. I'm sorry.
Okay, they're eligible for a consideration if they are registered in our e-business system, and those were the bidders that were eligible. However, if you want that additional information, I'll be happy to supply it specifically to the board.
Fantastic. As it relates to women-owned businesses as well, could we identify which companies are women-owned?
Yes, they are self-identified in the system when they register, and we absolutely can supply that. Do you want it for this specific bid?
No. I was talking about in general.
Oh, okay. Yes, we can provide that.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions?
I'm struck by lawn care snow. That's what struck me.
Diversification. Seeing no further questions, may I have a motion to advance this resolution to the full board?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next resolution is extended amendment and agreement on risk services. Mr. Setra, can you please provide a report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Committee Chairman, and good morning again to the other committee and board members participating in the committee meeting this morning. This resolution will authorize PRT to extend and amend agreement with Aon Risk Services Central Incorporated for the continued provision of property and casualty risk management and brokerage services. The services under this agreement number R2102 include, but are not necessarily limited to, design and marketing of operational insurance coverages required by PRT for our insurance programs. Includes our directors and officers liability, our employer practices liability, our cybersecurity, and our excess workers' compensation insurance policies. Evaluation of insurance proposals and placement of insurance coverages for PRT on an as-needed basis, which is typically annually for each of our policies that we hold. Sometimes we do get a rate lock, so sometimes they can be 2 years as well. Providing advice and support regarding insurance requirements that PRT has for its contractors, vendors, and third parties seeking to access our property. In June 2021, and following a request for proposal solicitation process consistent with PRT's board adopted procurement procedures for professional and technical services solicitations. The board authorized PRT to enter into agreement number R21-02 with Aon for initial term of 3 years through September 30th of this year, with the option to extend the agreement up to 2 additional years of PRT's sole discretion for a total initial not to exceed amount of $285,000. Today, PRT management has determined that Aon has provided the services in a satisfactory manner, and that the services remain critical to maintaining our property and casualty risk management program. This resolution would authorize PRT to exercise the first of its 2 optional extension years to extend the agreement with Aon through September 30th of 2025 and increase the total authorized not to exceed amount for the agreement by $95,000 to $380,000 to fund the services for an additional year. Subject to any member questions, I respectfully request that the committee recommend this resolution to the full board for approval.
Thank you. Does any board member have questions?
The claims that we had many claims.
Well, cyber insurance, we have not had any claim. We've been fortunate that we haven't had any claims that where a cyber insurance carrier has had to respond, but we will get, we'll have incidents from time to time where we may get a report and report to our carrier that say, hey, our IT security caught this potential breach, things like that. Employer practices liability, anytime that we get a claim from an employee discrimination claim, we report those to our carrier. Workers' comp, again, that typically only kicks in as excess if you have an employee who's injured on like a permanent basis where they would be getting lifetime payments. So it varies, but they're all obviously very important coverages to carry, particularly our directors and officers.
Any further questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to advance the resolution at the full board?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Final resolution is an award of a construction contract regarding the South Hills Village facility. Mr. Bilski, can you please provide a report?
Good morning. This resolution seeks authorization to enter into a construction contract for contract SHJ 2401 South Hills Junction parking lot paving and site improvements. The scope of the work would include concrete pavement replacement, drainage and water line replacement, sidewalk repairs, improved ADA access, retaining wall and stairway rehabilitation, lighting upgrades, and new wayfinding signage. I have a graphic on the next slide, which I'll walk us further through these improvements. Sorry, not yet. So the project duration would be for about 6 months. We would anticipate, if the board approves the resolution, to get started later this summer. And we would construct it in 2 phases, which would continue to allow for access through the site to our patrons so as not to disrupt their normal access to our systems and services there. This contract would be awarded to Mealy and Mealy and Sons in the amount of $6,333,737. This resolution would also authorize PRT to enter into any subsequent agreements necessary to execute the work. And now we can go to the next slide. So for those that may not be aware where South Hills Junction is, it's actually just south of the Mount Washington Transit Tunnel where the lines converge with the red line and the blue and silver lines. On the right side, the site plan highlighted in yellow is the larger section highlighted in yellow is the parking lot. That will all be replaced with new concrete. That's an area that services employees and route foremen and buses in that parking lot. Additionally, we have a stairway rehabilitation that will that services the Warrington Avenue. Also, the red dots are improved ADA access improvements such as ADA ramps and other curb cuts and things that need to be replaced to improve access to those points. There's also a spur track that we use occasionally for special events or storing light rail vehicles. It's not the main station in the area, but it does get used occasionally. We'll be rehabilitating that as well. And also retaining walls along the site will be rehabilitated. With that, I respectfully request that the committee move this resolution to the full board for approval pending any further questions.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions?
I guess I have the same question as it relates to participation on small businesses, DBE's good faith effort. Was there any participation as it relates to small business owners and local business? Is this a local company?
Yes, this is a local company, but also, yes, there was this is a partially federally funded agreement, which triggers a disadvantaged business enterprises clause in the contract that has a stated goal. So the contractor will be required to achieve that goal.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to advance the resolution to the full board?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of moving this to the full board, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank
That is the conclusion of the agenda for the Performance Oversight Committee today. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Next up, we have the technology.
Hello, allow everyone to get their agendas together. We're going to convene the Technology Committee. We have a couple items on the agenda, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first item of business will be the roll call. Myself, I'm here. I'll do committee members. Ms. Nisgorski, are you available? Are you here?
Yes, I'm present.
Thank you. Mr. Tobin?
Here.
Okay, may all other board members identify themselves for the record?
Stephanie Turman.
Dante.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for participating today. The first item of business will be approval of the minutes from the May 16th Technology Committee meeting. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I believe that's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. So I believe Ms. Brown will be doing the first two, which is awarding of the bids, the resolution. Ms. Brown?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Again, good morning, honorable members of the committee and board. Procurement has two items. The first one is Cisco networking equipment and licensing. This was a competitively bidded solicitation on behalf of PRT is B24-03-28. It was publicly advertised in e-business. It was distributed to 1,121 suppliers, and 12 suppliers accepted the invitation, and PRT received 7 bids to provide various models of Cisco networking equipment and Cisco DNA Advantage software maintenance and support as needed to maintain proper monitoring of its internal networks over a 3-year period with no renewal options available. It's procurement's recommendation that a contract be awarded to the lowest responsive bidder, DISYS Solutions, Inc., in the estimated amount of $1,250,000 $172,655.70. There has been no previous purchase of this equipment. However, staff have determined the pricing to be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funds budgeted. The second item is for IGL software and training services. This is a CoStar state contract. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of General Services Cooperative Purchasing Program has awarded a contract under respective state schedule CoStar 006 for software. Under the contract, PRT intends to purchase software and training services. The effective date of the contract is from March 1st, 2022 through March 1st, 2025, and PRT is requesting to piggyback and make purchases under the terms and conditions of the awarded contract. PRT is requesting to purchase 600 IGEL software licenses, training module, and associated training support services under the terms and conditions of respective contract number 006-E22-209. It was awarded to AEC Group LLC. This software is designed to create a secure platform for PRT to access virtual applications such as cloud-based workstations and VMware Horizon virtual desktops. It is procurement's recommendation that this cooperative contract be awarded under the PGS CoStar contract for software to AEC Group LLC in the estimated amount of $113,383.21. And staff has determined that the pricing in Pennsylvania state schedule to be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funds budgeted. Pending any additional further questions, procurement respectfully request that these items be moved by the committee to the full board for consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brown, for your presentation and explanation. Hearing so, I will ask if there's any questions of the items presented from, we'll just say all board members. Okay, hearing no questions, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
I'll take that as thank you for the motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The
Thank
next
you.
item of business will be from, thank you, Ms. Brown, will be from a resolution from our Chief Information Officer, Mr. Devlin. Would you like to begin?
Yes, good morning. So this resolution is for an agreement with Giraud Incorporated, which is a French-Canadian firm, so they're not located in Pittsburgh, Stephanie.
Yeah.
I know we've been asking that today. And internally, we tend to call this software our HASTA software, and it's used by about at least 4 divisions that I can think of off the top of my head: customer service, human resources, operations, and scheduling. And I listed a variety of the modules there. We've been using the software since 2016, so it's very well embedded in our services here, and is serving us very, very well. So the current maintenance contract with Giraud expires at the end of September this year. We are requesting the board approve to enter into a new software agreement and maintenance software with Giraud for 3 years at a total not to exceed $2,121,530. So subject to any questions, I respectfully request that this resolution be presented to the full board for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Devlin. Are there any questions from any board members or committee members?
I have a question, and I'm not sure if how good of a question it is, but I'll take a risk. If it expires, why wouldn't we not put it back out to bid for possible local United States contractors?
Yes, that's a great question. So we explore every one of our opportunities individually, and we look at how embedded it is, how much it would cost to replace. Are there other options in the market that could replace it? For this particular one, there doesn't happen to be any software companies here in Pittsburgh that do these same particular modules. So with any situation, as we're looking, we explore whether it is feasible to replace, or if it should be continued as is.
Thank you for that explanation.
Right, any other additional questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I believe that concludes the business for the Technology Committee today. I also believe that that is the last committee for the day. Is that correct, Mr. Cetra?
That is correct. I'm
Okay.
chairman.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to welcome, I apologize if I didn't, the new members. Hopefully, get to see you next week. I look forward to meeting all of you and getting to know you. But on behalf of the board and the staff, I'd like to thank everyone for the participation today for our committee meetings. And with that, we stand adjourned for committees for the PRT. Everyone, please have a lovely day and try to stay cool.